Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe. Thanks for your support on Patreon, Little Drummer Boy Scott Drummond. A former WWE World Heavyweight Champion debuts for AEW. The inaugural Women's Champion is crowned. And we get the most shocking development in the wrestling war so far. Green shirt guy has defected from the front row of WWE to AEW. Seriously, how do you get all those tickets? Click the timestamps in the video description below to go straight to any of those stories. Right now, I'm Ollie Davis. Press the thumbs up button, give us a subscribe, and answer this question in the comments down below. What did you think of AEW's debut TV episode? Because I'll be replying to people from out of nowhere saying it needs more cuckold stuff. That's good S word. And vote in the poll above my head to give your rating of the show, where you can choose from Elite, AEW some middle of the roads, SC2 out of 5, and what the buck. Also, please comment below with your own rating system suggestions because that is a work in progress. While Luke and I review the 2nd of October 2019 debut episode of AEW Dynamite.
After the very cool opening video intro, which AEW released online a few days earlier, we were treated to a sight that will have given a lot of wrestling fans of a certain age a giant nostalgia boner. Good old Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone providing commentary for the show. Oh, and Excalibur, but you weren't commentating during the Attitude Era, so no bonus for you. It's a nice ploy by AEW to bring back those lapsed fans that left in their droves in 2001 and 2002, having the voice of Monday Night Raw Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone the voice of WCW Nitro, and Excalibur, who's very good at commentating. Plus, it will probably provide a nice bump for Conrad Thompson's podcast downloads. The opening match was between Cody and Sammy Guevara, which also got a nice video package beforehand to hype up both men. It set up what I thought would be a running theme for the show, highlighting the matches and giving them stakes to go along with AEW's tracking of wins and losses. They told the really excellent story that Cody was possibly looking past Guevara, as he's got an office job and all the responsibilities that go with that, as well as his AEW Championship match with Chris Jericho at Full Gear. And Sammy could possibly take advantage of all of this to make a name for himself on the debut episode of Dynamite on TNT. Sadly, this was the only match to get a video package, but thankfully it was saved for what was comfortably, for both Ollie and I at least, the best match of the night. Cody made Sammy look like a total star, taking a guy who had only previously been on the pre-show for Double or Nothing and a 4-way at Fight for the Fallen, and turned him into an upper mid-card main eventer by the end of the night. Sammy hit an impressive array of quick moves, including the Andrade-like double moonsault, but added a new element to it by also hitting a shooting star press, a top rope Spanish fly for a great near fall, and he even kicked out of the disaster kick. There was also some great drama where Sammy pulled Rhodes in the way of a Cody dive, and in the end the American Nightmare picked up the win with a roll-up, which isn't a definitive win and totally protects Sammy, but also still puts Cody over as the #1 contender to the AEW World title. The best kind of matches are the ones where both men come out of it looking better than when they went in, and this was a great example of that. Sammy shook hands with Cody after the match. I'm sure that won't play into anything later in the night, and then Le Champion Chris Jericho ran down to attack his Full Gear opponent, leaving him laying with various code breakers and the devastating Judas elbow. The beatdown went through all the commercial break and gave a nice incentive for fans to stick around for more AEW action.
The second match of the night saw Brandon Cutler take on MJF, who the crowd popped massively for. But this is mega heel MJF, and he won't be having any of that. Just a few promo lines later, everyone was chanting asshole at him for calling them poor. MJF is an incredible heel on the mic, but him coming out here jarred with the angle that preceded it. Him and Cody are meant to be best friends, with Rhodes as MJF's wrestling mentor. Yet he didn't come out to save Cody from Jericho's prolonged ground beatdown. It's a rather large logic hole that's hard to miss when the product encourages you to pay so much attention to detail, with a commendable focus on the wins-losses record. The match had its moments, like a great dive outside into a Fez press from Cutler and the debut of the corner cam, but a botched sunset flip powerbomb foreshadowed our first weird finish. Brandon seemingly tweaking his knee coming off the top rope, so MJF tapped him out in an armbar. Not the obviously injured knee. The fantastic interviewer Chris Van Vliet, however you say his last name, then caught up with Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes at ringside about their new film Jay and Silent Bob reboot, which stars Chris Jericho. Angelico and Jack Evans came down to scream, "Morris Day and the Time are a bad band" at Smith, a joke about the first Jay and Silent Bob movie, or at least I think that's what they said. It's hard to hear Angelico and Evans over their outfits, before Private Party diffused the situation with beer. An SCU vignette of Scorpio Sky doing a Barack Obama impression outside the White House preceded an interview with SCU on the entrance ramp, where they confirmed it'll be Christopher Daniels and Kaz competing in the tag tournament, which brought out the Lucha Bros for a good old-fashioned pull-apart brawl with a load of backstage officials, which makes it even more confusing that nobody stopped the 10-minute beatdown of Cody earlier by Jericho. Oh look, it's Dean Malenko as a producer. I don't mind them. Logic holes, schmlogic holes. Am I right, Dean? Then came the match we were supposed to get at May's Double or Nothing. Hangman Page versus the Bastard Puck. These two work incredibly well together, and they had a heavy-hitting, strike-based match with a bunch of dives thrown in for the heck of it. But in a botch-filled night, even the usually flawless Pac slipped on a springboard 450, because that's so easy to do. The Bastard extended his win record to 2-0 with a stiff low blow on Page behind the referee's back, quickly following up with a Black Arrow and a Brutalizer. The commentators immediately referenced how important that record is, as AEW brilliantly and very effectively continued to make wins and losses matter.
We crowned our first ever AEW Women's Champion next, as Nyla Rose took on Riho for the coveted, but seemingly rather dainty and small AEW Women's title. Britt Baker came out for commentary, but didn't really add anything, and was seemingly there to instead scout the competition. The story of the match was what you would expect. Riho tried to use speed to her advantage, but was often shut down by the much larger Nyla Rose, who completely annihilated her. I'll see myself out. Nyla tried to grab chairs from under the ring for some reason, and it ended up being her undoing as she did a rolling senton from the apron onto a pile on the outside, which allowed Riho to run wild with her amazing kick-based offense. The match was far from perfect though, and featured a fair amount of botches. Credit to both women though, as they didn't just repeat the spots they messed up, and they are so good that they got the crowd back on their side, so they were super hot for the final third, which featured some great near falls, eventually seeing Riho pin Rose to become the first ever women's champion. Maybe they gave her the belt as it will look regular sized in her tiny hands. While many figured Nyla Rose would pick up the belt due to her imposing side and the positive press it would generate from the LGBTQ community, it is a smarter move to put it on the better in-ring worker in Riho. Botches aside, I really enjoyed this match and was emotionally invested throughout. What wasn't so great though was yet another heel beatdown of a babyface when Rose attacked Riho and Michael Nakazawa, who got in the ring for an interview. Rose tried to give Riho the Death Valley driver on the apron until she was saved by Kenny Omega, who had been set up as a friend and trainer of Riho's on the Countdown show that had aired on Tuesday night. Another hyped match on that Countdown show was AEW Dynamite's first ever main event, a 6-man tag between Chris Jericho, Santana, and Ortiz versus The Elite, who came out to a Marvel Studios inspired Being the Elite intro. I was really excited for this match and figured it would be a really fun spot-filled 6-man tag to showcase all the guys in the ring, especially the former LAX Santana and Ortiz who debuted at All Out. Sadly, the action was stopped early by a Jon Moxley attack on Omega, and the two brawled all over the building and ended with Moxley giving the cleaner the Death Rider through a glass coffee table in the VIP area that will ironically now need to be cleaned up. It is a shame that the first main event of AEW Dynamite ended in a DQ and... Wait, sorry, what? It wasn't a DQ. There was still 10 minutes of wrestling that happened afterwards. It just turned into a 2-on-3 handicap match. Well, that's weird. For a company that puts so much focus on small details, logic holes like this are even more exposed and frankly annoying. The heels beating down Matt Jackson didn't fully show off how good Santana and Ortiz are, and despite having a fantastic comeback, seriously, Nick Jackson is really good at professional wrestling, Chris Jericho picked up the win with the devastating Judas Effect elbow.
Jericho, Santana and Ortiz continued to beat down the Bucks after the match, which brought down Cody to get revenge on Jericho for earlier. There were no officials to stop any of this, of course. What are the rules? Sammy Guevara then kicked Cody in the dick, Attitude Era, which brought out Cody's brother Dustin for the save, and appropriately considering AEW's next pay-per-view, in Full Gear. Dustin's monster pop from the crowd was only topped by what came next though. The shock debut of a former WWE World Heavyweight Champion, Jack Swagger, who now goes by his real name, Jack Hager. Jake beat down Dustin, likely setting up a feud between the two, and the crowd gave him a superstar reaction, chanting, "We, the people." I'm afraid to say though, I wasn't so enthused. Unlike Cody, Drew McIntyre and Enzo Amore, okay, bad example on the last one, Hager hasn't made me excited for him outside of WWE. He's done a few independent wrestling dates, became the Lucha Underground champion, whatever that's worth in 2019, and won some MMA fights. To me, he's still kind of a mid-card act. It's a very TNA move, debuting a WWE mid-carder in such a prominent position, which can sometimes work. I thought AEW's Shawn Spears feud with Cody was terrific, but it can also make them look a bit low rent. The show closed on Swagger standing side by side with Ortiz, Santana, Sammy and Jericho, a random mishmash of heels, which I always criticize WWE for doing, so it's only fair I do the same here. I would have much preferred the main event just be a six-man tag getting over Ortiz and Santana, with Moxley causing the DQ on Kenny at the end. I really enjoyed this debut episode. AEW did a great job of establishing themselves as an alternative to WWE, had a fantastic presentation, brilliantly structured the matches around how important wins and losses are, and got over a bunch of wrestlers in the process. But there were issues. I don't mind the botches, but the inconsistencies in what brawls the backstage officials will break up, or how Moxley attacking Omega wasn't a DQ, really jarred with my enjoyment of those angles. Sure, it's nitpicky, but that's the standard AEW have set themselves, with such a tremendous attention to detail with their stats-based storytelling. I'm excited to see where we go from here though. The debut episode of AEW Dynamite is AEW-some, which is 4 out of 5 if you forgot, because it's a new system. CM Punk has called out The Rock for Friday Night SmackDown. Click the video on the right to learn more on what's the real reason WWE is burying Rusev. Click the video below that to find out. I've been Oli Davis, and that was wrestling.